Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Guest interviews include entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Be sure to listen up. This is important because it's your money. Your money. Be sure to listen to Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Good evening and welcome to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, and I am broadcasting live from beautiful Wildwood, New Jersey, here on 98.7 The Coast. And it's a very special evening because I have 3 guests instead of 2 guests, which is the normal show format. But I ran into an opportunity where I was able to get Dr. Alveda King on the show this evening. And if you don't know her, she happens to be the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King, who, of course, you know, is a civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King. She is the niece of Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Alveda King. And I had the opportunity to get her on the show tonight, so I restructured the show. I ran into a blog post of hers called Black History and the American Dream, and I thought, it being Black History Month, I would see if I could get her on the show, and I was able to pull it off. So, and I already had Bob Fu, who is Senior Fellow for International Religious Freedom at the Family Research Council. I already had him scheduled, and I already had Michelle Willette, who is co-founder at Balance Your Path, scheduled, and I thought I could pull off 3 guests tonight, so here we are. So I'm going to have a shorter intro tonight, and I'm going to have all 3 guests this evening. Bob Fu is going to talk to us about how money motivates U.S.-China relations. I thought with the Olympics going on and so much in the news about our relationship with China, with a war imminent with Ukraine and with Russia chumming up with China these days. It would be good to know what motivates our relationship with China and what's going on there. Some very interesting things I found out when I was doing some research and background to talk with Mr. Fu today. So I'm looking forward to my conversation with him, and he's our first guest this evening. And then our second guest is Dr. Alveda King. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with her about Black history and the American Dream. She is Dr. Alveda King, chairman of the Center for the American Dream at America First Policy Institute. So we're going to talk to her somewhere around 7:45. And then at 8:20, we're going to speak with Michelle Willette, co-founder at Balance Your Path. And we're going to talk to her about the top 10 strategies to start a successful business from home. So a packed show this evening, looking very forward to it. It's been kind of an exhausting week, so but I get energized doing the show. So I'm looking very forward to talking to my guests this evening. I did not do Newsmax this week. Why didn't I do Newsmax this week? Because I had a meeting that I had to be in. So I didn't do Newsmax this week, but check out a show that I'm on that I co-host with my dear friends, Dr. Chris Metzler, Mr. Jeff Charles, and another gentleman named Mr. Lenny McAllister. It's called The Red and Black Show. You can find it on YouTube, and it debuts I never talk about this, but it debuts every Saturday at 12 on YouTube. And if you want to know why it's called Red and Black, you'll have to check out the show to figure out why it's called Red and Black. But it's myself and 3 gentlemen, and we talk about some timely topics. And it's really fun. So you should hang out with us for an hour. And if you follow at Red and Black Show on Twitter, we always announce it with a link, but you can find us on YouTube and like and subscribe the show, and that's every Saturday at 12, a new show launches. Now, I wanted to talk to you guys about something. I was like, I have a shorter intro. What am I going to talk about? And I thought one of the things that I might mention is that I know that I don't hide that I'm unapologetically a right-winger, right? Which is fine. But I wanted to say again, I know I've said this before, but I figured I'd take the opportunity, since I had a shorter intro, that I could like really emphasize this, that I don't intentionally only have guests from the right on my show. And to, in order to kind of expand on that, since I had a short amount of time, I had just enough time to do this. I book my own guests. Now, a lot of times, what happens is, because I had the podcast before I came to the 98.7 The Coast family, a lot of publishers and different people reach out to me to be on the show because of different connections, and because I've had the podcast for quite some time. People know to reach out to me. They tend to be on the right. So I've started, when I knew I was going to move to 98.7 The Coast, started to expand my horizons, so to speak, and reach out to people on the left. Crickets. Thus far, I will tell you, I wanted to share who I've reached out to and why. Senator Cory Booker's office. They have a media email that you reach out to. I reached out to his office. I wanted to discuss the police reform bill because he and Senator Tim Scott were working on a police reform bill. I know I could reach out to Senator Tim Scott. I probably already know his position. It's an echo chamber. I wanted to know what it is that Senator Cory Booker wanted. Does he want to defund the police? Like that involves money. Like what's his position? And I wanted you all to hear that. I wanted to talk to him about it. I did not hear back. The email didn't bounce back, so I assume his media people got it. I didn't hear anything. I reached out to, I believe it's the former head of the Cape May County Democrat Party. The email never bounced back. I didn't hear anything. Said if anybody wants to be on the show, please, email me back. Let me know, whatever. Nothing. I emailed the national NAACP regarding racism in the NFL, as I'm sure many of you are aware. A black NFL coach has recently sued the NFL over racism, alleged racism in the NFL. And that's not the first time that allegation has come up in the NFL among the coaching staff. And I figured, rather than, speak in a vacuum, I would get an organization which, is supposed to be nonpartisan. In my opinion, it's not super nonpartisan. So I figured I'd reach out to the NAACP on a national level. They also have a media outlet contact. Now, of course, in case most people, I would assume, are not familiar, but typically when you make these contacts, when you reach out to someone to be a guest on your show, you want to send a link to your podcast or whatever, so people have an idea of what they're getting into. Nothing. Crickets. And so those are just, that's not even everybody on the left that I've reached out to so far, but I've heard nothing. Listen, tell a friend. I think I would be super respectful, and have a good dialogue and a respectful conversation. And I look forward to having that. So if anyone is interested, on the left in having a good policy conversation and talking about money, who is on the other side of the aisle, I am completely open to it. Just want to let people know. I figured I take my short intro time to put that ask out one more time. And if anybody has contact with any of the people that I've already emailed, feel free to tell them ask them to email me back, please. I'd appreciate it. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My first guest after the break is Bob Fu, Senior Fellow for International Religious Freedom at Family Research Council. We'll be talking to him about how money motivates the U.S.-China relations. We'll be back in a moment.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette, and our first guest this evening is Mr. Bob Fu. He is the Senior Fellow for International Religious Freedom at Family Research Council, and he's going to talk to us this evening about how money motivates U.S.-China relations, and I'm very happy to have him on the show this evening. And without further ado, Mr. Bob Fu. Good evening.
Thank you, Melody, for having me. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm so happy to have you on the show this evening. Can you please tell the audience a bit about yourself?
Yes, Melanie. Back to 33 years ago, I was in Tiananmen Square as one of the students leaders from my university leading the protest over there. And then the Communist Party, of course, as we all know, and I witnessed that the Chinese Communist Party leaders sent military tanks and with machine guns and killed hundreds, if not thousands, of innocent citizens. And the Communist Party took revenge against me and treated me like a criminal as a college student at that time. And that was the time I came to become a Christian after reading a biography that's smuggled in by our American Christian English teachers who were kind of missionaries. Thank God for them. And essentially, I became an underground church leader in Beijing and planted an unregistered house church and an underground Bible school. Then in 1996, both my wife and I were thrown into jail in Beijing for being accused of engaging illegal evangelism and illegal religious activities. And after that, so we were exiled, had to actually flee out of China because my wife was pregnant without the government family planning officials permit. You have to get a quota to get pregnancy, even for our first child. So she could face a forced abortion, and we are facing imminent arrest. So we fled to out of China in 1996, and essentially went to Hong Kong, hiding there with our first baby born before Hong Kong was handed over to China. So 3 days before Hong Kong was handed over to Communist China, we were accepted as refugees to the United States and landed at the land of the free. And we are so thankful to this country since then.
That's you said a whole mouthful in just that little bit of time, like just to make people appreciate how you've won the lottery when you're born in the United States, that you were convicted of the crime of being a Christian, of the crime of it was a crime to practice your religion, and it also was a crime to have a baby.
That's right. You have to get a permission, also a specific yellow card. I remember, even after we got married for 3 years, we could not get a permission card to get a legal pregnancy. Only after we were released from prison. We didn't want to obey that rule anymore, and that was an illegal pregnancy that really took a very drastic turn for our lives.
That's I mean, from the perspective of a U.S. citizen, that is wild. And many of us here in the United States kind of know some of these things about China. And so it kind of begs the question, you would think, why so many corporations don't stand up and say more about what goes on in China and why the United States seems to have such a cozy relationship with China, why United States corporations seem to have such a cozy relationship with China, why celebrities tend not to say anything negative about China, and when they do, you'll find that they grovel and apologize profusely. Like they make a big public statement if they say something negative about China.
Yes, Melanie, you're exactly right. I mean, with this very intriguing question. I mean, given the Chinese Communist Party, 33 years later after a Tiananmen massacre, and the Communist Party is internationally acknowledged committing a genocide, ongoing genocide and ethnic cleansing and crime against humanity, with the 1 to 3 million ethnic Uyghurs and Kazakhs and Christians and Muslims alike are now put in the over 360 concentration camps, primarily in West China, called the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. And we have so many Christians are being imprisoned for simply practice their faith. Thousands of churches being destroyed, the crosses are being forcefully demolished, torn down, and burned down. And you have millions of Chinese Christian children were being forced to renounce their faith in public, in their school, by signing a Communist Party prepared form. And even like a Chinese American, like my friend Pastor John Hall from North Carolina, and he was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment, right now still in prison, for simply helping 2,000 children in the minority area between China and Burma border, and he was charged for so-called illegal border crossing as a Chinese American, 7 years. Another pastor, Pastor Wang Yi, was sentenced to 9 years for preaching a sermon based on John 3:16, calling the Chinese Communist Party dictator Xi Jinping to repent for his repressive religious policy and invite him to accept Jesus Christ as his savior. And that's called subversion of state power, a crime of treason. He was sentenced to 9 years imprisonment. His wife was tortured. Their little boy has been totally separated from both parents. And as we're talking now. So, I mean, I can give you a lot of examples, but the most intriguing, I think, question we should ask, I mean, the conscience of those sponsors of this second genocide Olympics after 1936 Berlin Olympics hosted by Hitler Germany, is right now in Beijing, like to Coca-Cola, to NBC, to Nike, to those greedy American corporations. How could you trade your conscience, and knowing that millions of fellow human beings are in the modern concentration camp in Beijing, and you are sponsoring a Communist Party propaganda political show, and knowing that the atrocity are still happening. How can we justify that? I think that is a question every American should ask them, because the Communist Party's brutality is not only just keeps it in its own territory. We all know they extended its evil arm way beyond its border now in the United States. I mean, you have, like in Purdue University campus, a Chinese student just simply because he want to commemorate the anniversary of Tiananmen Square massacre, and he received threats from other Chinese students, and the next day his parents in China were both visited by the Chinese State Security Bureau. I mean, this is happening in the United States soil. I give you on and on many examples showing how the Communist Party is trying to change America to conform to its communist rule. And unfortunately, we have so many, I think, naive factors of society in America are too complacent, too, I think, in the sense, it's, being brainwashed by the leftist ideologue over here and believe this propaganda.
I'm sure that you're right about that. And there's two things when I was doing some background to speak with you today. There's two interesting things that I ran into. The first thing was the obvious, right? Obvious reasons.
Yes.
Was the amount of money involved, money in jobs,
yes.
right? Was a statistic that I found at the Brookings Institute website was that in 2020, China was America's largest goods trading partner. Okay, duh, we knew that, right? Third largest export market and largest source of imports. Exports to China supported an estimated 1.2 million jobs in the United States in 2019. Most U.S. companies operating in China report being committed to the China market for the long term. That's according to the Brookings Institute. That's obvious. I wasn't shocked by that. What shocked me was some information I ran into according to the Harvard Business Review, which is, we know that over the past couple of decades, China has been relatively successful economically. But China's people, I think in the United States, we feel like because China has been economically successful, we would automatically associate that with capitalism. But China's people don't think that way. They think that it's because of communism. And the other thing is, when we teach economics, one of the things that I happen to teach, I teach financial literacy, and I also teach economics as an educator. And when public schools teach economics, when we teach communism, we don't mention the violence and the control that communism brings. We only mention that everybody's equal. When they teach that in the textbooks, even when you Google communism, they don't mention the violence, the slaughter, and the control. They don't mention any of that. They just mention that everybody's going to be equal, and it's all good. But the people in China, at least according to a study by Harvard Business Review, don't feel overall that capitalism and freedom is needed in order to be financially successful. In fact, they feel that communism is part of why they're successful. And I was floored by that information.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned Brookings. I mean, even the Brookings Institution, a think tank, was found culpable and compromised with Chinese propaganda money, penetrated into that institution. So that's a public knowledge as well to facilitate the Communist Party's propaganda. In any case, I think you are right about how the corporate America, try to basically, in the name of engagement with China, with the Chinese Communist Party, they became enabler, empowering a tiger, still diehard communism believers. Look, the religious freedom of speech, and human rights has entered into the worst time we have not seen in China in 40 years, since the Cultural Revolution. And so everybody acknowledged that. We actually found so many examples, of course. One guy who received 19 years for sending a few 58 Twitter messages. He has to climb the internet firewall in order to tweet, and he was found guilty of being accused of providing state secret to overseas organizations. 19 years imprisonment. So China Aid has to rescue his wife and their young baby, and the father still had never seen the baby, his own son, before he was arrested. His wife was pregnant.
Oh, my word. Because they don't have, if I recall correctly, they don't have Google there, right? No Google, no Twitter.
That's right. Google, Facebook, I mean, as much kind of complacency, and they're trying to please China, they are totally denied from the ordinary Chinese citizen the access. I mean, the Apple, now that's another example showing the Communist Party successfully using the economic leverage, make Apple to remove all the Bible apps from the Apple store in China. So millions of Chinese could not have any access to download the Bible or Bible-related apps today in China. And of course, Apple made billions and billions of dollars over there, and they basically has totally become complacent with the Communist Party's rule.
And all they had to do was take the Bible app out of their store. That's not huge or anything. That sounds completely insane. And I'm not sure. I hope that there are a few people listening tonight that had no idea that that's what we mean when we say that China is ruled by communists. No, we don't mean what Google says that communism is. Communism, according to Google, is a political theory derived from Karl Marx, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned, and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. Doesn't that sound sweet?
Very, very.
It doesn't sound like, and by the way, you won't be able to worship the way you want, and you're not going to have Google, Twitter, or Facebook, or, by the way, a Bible. What? That's absolutely crazy.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the craziest thing, I just felt like, back to year 2000, when Congress was considering for the PNTR, known as the Permanent Normal Trade Relations with China, that enable Congress to review review China's human rights before kind of renewing that trade concessions. It was ironically our then President Bill Clinton. I mean, he lobbied Congress, and of course, with the business, the corporate Americas were quoted. I quoted this from the Economic Policy Institute, when an article said the businesses community in D.C. is planning to spend at least $14 million to lobbying Congress to implement that PNTR agreement, then help China enter into WTO. What have we harvested? Back to 2000, the trade deficit between China and the U.S. is only 70 billion, and now, even after President Trump's cracking down, by 2021, the U.S.-China, our deficit is 355 billion. That's 5 times. I mean, they destroy our workers, jobs, and I think the most fearful thing is the Communist Party successfully compromise our politicians across the board, Republicans and Democrats.
They absolutely have. I want to thank you so much for being on our show this evening. You did a fabulous job giving us some insight into how money plays such a part in the U.S.-China relationship. Thank you so much for being on the show this evening, Mr. Fu. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Melanie,
Yep.
for having me.
Yep, you have a great night. We'll be right back.
Money Talk with Melanie features lively discussions of a wide range of global, domestic, and kitchen table financial topics. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette. And that was Bob Fu that we just had on this evening. He is from the Family Research Council. He talked to us about how China and the U.S., how money motivates China and U.S. relations. And it is a crazy relationship that we have, and it's all motivated by money. And because of how hardcore China is and how they deal with people, how they are how they have an authoritarian political system. Like when we in the United States deal with them, like we forget that we're dealing with authoritarians because we are Americans and we have all these freedoms. And when we deal with them, we forget that that's who we're dealing with. But we also are kind of, here's the thing that's hypocritical. Here's why it's problematic. It would be different, especially when it pertains to corporations. Like you have corporations that do all this like super woke stuff, like in the name of what's right. And in the name of humanity, they do all these things over here, which is basically like virtue signaling and just super fake. And it must be fake because when you go over in China and invest all this money when you're doing super murderous, horrible things and their people have like no freedom and you go over there and invest your money and say nothing about it and have no problems with it. I'm just saying it's the hypocrisy. That's the issue. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that necessarily that they should have boycotted the Olympics. I mean, as far as the Olympics are concerned, I think they're still going on right now. Worst ratings, I think, ever so far. But when I'm saying, I think the United States should have never had the Olympics over there to begin with. Like, they should have never had them. They should have never been there. Like, what are we doing over there? Shouldn't have been there. Anyway. Anywho, our next guest around 7:45 is going to be Dr. Alveda Kang. Very excited to talk to her. I've met her once, which I'm certain she does not remember, at an event at the top of the Heritage Foundation in D.C. Before COVID, I used to hang out quite a bit in D.C. and NYC. I was a mover and shaker back then. And I was at some cocktail party or something on the roof of the Heritage Foundation, and I met her. She also can sing. I don't know if I should be saying that publicly. I'm going to tease her about it when I get on the phone. But she also can sing. She sang that night. She's got a beautiful singing voice. I've actually met her a couple times. I feel like I met her at a different event, a pro-life event somewhere in D.C. too. And that might have been the event that she sang at. I forget, but she can sing too. Matter of fact, as some of us who are well-melanated, you can steal that, well-melanated will say she can sing. She can really sing. Yep, Dr. Alveda Kang. Anyway, here's a little bit of financial news that I can squeeze in here before we get Alveda Kang on the phone. I thought I'd give you a couple of tips on getting financially organized in 2022. We all need to hear this. Whenever I'm giving you guys this advice, just know I'm giving myself this advice because it's stuff that I should be doing. I'm really bad. I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, and I said, those who cannot do, teach. Trust me. So one of the things that I usually eventually get to this stuff, just not like on January 1st, just saying. So review your 401k and IRA allocations, which is what this friend was doing. And she asked me, had I done it yet? And I was like, no, I have not done it yet. I'm on it though. I'm totally going to do that. But you do need to do that. Especially since You need to review it for a couple of reasons. One, like, you get older every year. You need to make sure, like, you're on track for retirement because you don't want to be, like, 85 when you retire. And two, you need to make sure your HR person is, like, taking the right amount out. Like, people make mistakes. You need to make sure your HR person's on top of it. So there's a couple reasons why you need to make sure that your 401k and your IRA allocations are right. So make sure you check that. Finally do some estate planning because I'm never going to die, so why would I do that? No, we're all, one thing we have in common is we're all out of here. So you got to do that. You got to take, an hour, however long it's going to take, and just handle that, and then forget about it because you're not going to die. None of us are. Okay, but you do need to do that. Seriously, you do. No matter how young you are, seriously, especially like if you have kids, handle that. Review your insurance. That's another thing important. Make sure you have enough life insurance. Talk to a talented, knowledgeable broker. Very important. See what you're trying to do, which you can afford, but make sure you review your insurance situation, particularly if you've had a major life change. Make sure you take care of that. Like if you had a kid or you got married, something like that. Make sure you review your insurance situation. Check your credit report. Lots of good reasons to do that, especially if you had a major life change. You want to make sure, or you're about to do something important, like buy a house or something like that. You want to make sure it's accurate and there's nothing crazy on your credit report. Make sure you pay off some debts. Review your debt situation. Interest rates are probably going to go up soon because they're like super low right now, and the Fed is going to be raising them. So you want to focus, get a plan together to pay off any debt that you might have. And then finally, meet with a financial planner. Believe it or not, financial planning is not for the rich. If you're making any kind of money, it's always good to plan. Meet with a financial planner. Worth it. Worth it. Just saying. So you should definitely do those 5 things. I thought that was super easy. I'm going to squeeze like one more quick thing in here. Do you have a budget? Okay. So here's the thing. Those who can't do teach. So it's not that I don't have a budget. Okay. So I have a budget in theory. So I use the app, mint.com. Am I allowed to say that? So send us a check, Mint. So I've been using it for years, and I go in like every 3 months or so and update it and make sure everything looks good. And Mint will send you, they'll send you an email or something, like if you go over, if you're close or whatever. So like I kind of have a budget. If you haven't started a budget yet, and you think it's going to be too difficult, it isn't. Okay? If you're scared, well, I think the biggest like fear with having a budget is that you think you're not going to have enough money, and you probably don't, which is why you need to have a budget. Like, okay, if you don't have enough money, you're still not going to have enough money without a budget. Or with a budget, like your situation's not going to change. So you really are better off knowing what's going on. So you'll actually be better off if you know what's going on and it can at least be like conscious of what's going on. So examine your income. Make sure you take a look at your income, and if you have a spouse, make sure you and your spouse are on the same page. Make sure you choose a budgeting strategy. In other words, are you going to use certain percentages? I recommend a zero balance budget. Don't try to budget like the government does it with a deficit. Don't do that. There's tons of different budgeting models on the internet. Do some research. Pick one. I highly recommend that. And there's tons of strategies that you could use. Reduce your spending. Always a good idea. Automate your savings and your insurance payments. Definitely a good idea. Track your progress. I highly recommend that at mint.com. Okay, You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. Dr. Alveda King coming right up. We'll be right back.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Willette, and our next guest is Dr. Alveda King, chairman of the Center for the American Dream at America First Policy Institute. She's going to talk to us this evening about Black history and the American Dream. I'm very excited to have her on the show. Without further ado, Dr. Alveda King.
Well, thank you. Good evening. Hi to you and all your listeners.
Hi, how are you?
It's fine. Thank you, Melanie.
I don't know if you are aware of this. You and I have met maybe 2 or 3 times at a couple of events in D.C. I'm certain that you do not remember, but I wanted to mention it to you anyway.
Well, I'm glad to say hello again.
I'm very excited to have you on the show, and I was telling my listeners before you got on that one of the events you sang, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but that you could really sing. And I was so excited that you were going to be on the show.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to join you. Yeah.
So I ran into your article on Black history and the American Dream. But before we dig into that, please tell the audience a bit about your background.
Well, I am a Christian evangelist. I'm a pro-life voice in America. I am the daughter of Reverend Alfred Daniel William King and his wife, Naomi, and the niece of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I am the chairman of the Center for the American Dream for America First Policy Institute. And that's just a few things. I have a show on Fox Nation, Alveda King's House. So those are some of the things that I'm involved in.
Excellent. So I ran into, like I said, the article, Black History and the American Dream, and I thought, an excellent topic for Black History Month. It actually really for any time, and I thought I'd really love to talk to Dr. Alveda King about this on my show, because the American Dream is certainly every American's dream, but you just have a really special way of articulating that. And every Black History Month, I feel like people ask, why do we even have a Black History Month? Especially, sorry to say, conservatives ask about that a lot. Why do we have a Black History Month? Why is that even necessary?
Well, actually, Dr. Ken Blackwell, Ambassador Ken Blackwell, over at the Center for the AFPI, America First Policy Institute, and he's a chairman of the Voter Integrity Center, and I'm over the American Dream Center, and he says that Black history is American history. My uncle, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., said, I have a dream, and it's rooted in the American dream. So Black history is just part of American history. I think it's really important because often in America we remember slavery, segregation, and all of that, but we don't always remember the beautiful accomplishments of African Americans throughout the history of the nation. So it kind of balances and levels that playing field when we talk about the accomplishes as well. And what we want to always do is to correct the injustices, but continue to build on the foundations of the successes of the African American community.
Indeed. And that's exactly right. And so instead of, I feel like, rehashing old wounds, we should be building.
Well, as we build, but we can correct those old wounds rather than just rehash, we have to come in with solutions. For example, the hot topic of the day is CRT, critical race theory. And so some people says, well, we're going to teach CRT in school, critical race in school. And some people were offended and says, oh, no, because that's divisive. Well, I think we needed to talk about why CRT is divisive. What is the critical race theory? And it came with people like Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, who thought that there was a superior race of humans. Charles Darwin, the survival of the fittest, saying that there was a race that was superior, and they called it the Aryan race. Of course, Hitler talked about that too. Caucasian people with the blue eyes and the blonde hair. And so all of that needs to be taught, that there's only one race, one blood, the human race. Acts 17:26 says that. Martin Luther King Jr. said we must learn to live together as brothers, and all that as sisters, or perish together as fools. So we don't see separate races. So lately when people say regardless of race, I say you need to break that down too. You don't mean regardless of your race getting along with my race, but you need to teach that there is only one human race. There are ethnicities, and ethnicity should be celebrated. Ethnicity is a beautiful thing, and it's often reflected in skin color and certain cultural issues as well. So biologically, we can have different skin colors, but we're one human race.
That is for sure. And so we ask ourselves the question, why are we separating ourselves by our different skin colors? Why are we doing that? What is the purpose of that?
We don't know the truth, because once we know the truth that we are all brothers and sisters, my friend Ginger Howard and I wrote a book, We're Not Colorblind. Martin Luther King Jr. said we must learn to live together as brothers, all as sisters, or perish together as fools. He didn't say cousins or neighbors or immigrants or any of that. He said brothers and sisters. I say add sisters. So we just have to be taught that we're one human race, and to celebrate human dignity from the womb to the tomb. That's the little babies in the womb. Because, a woman really does have a right to choose what she does with her body. The baby is not her body. You have to ask, where's the lawyer for the baby? How can the dream survive if we murder the children? So we want human dignity for every human being.
Indeed. Now, I was watching the other day a woman on The View. I was watching a clip from The View, and a woman, she was a white woman, said something very similar to what you said, about being a part of the human race, and we're all brothers and sisters. And Whoopi Goldberg said, but, it's white people who have to step up and act like that's true. You live in the United States, and that's not true. It's white people who have to act like that's true.
We all people, regardless of skin color, need to embrace human dignity. That's really the truth. So Whoopi says a lot of different things. She got a little mixed up about who Hitler was.
Right.
Other things, So I think that she needs to re-examine history a little bit and study it.
For sure. So you got to wonder why I feel like people like her, people of her ilk, are always kind of promoting division, for some reason or another. And they, equate racial identification with skin color.
Just a lack of information, lack of education, and it keeps things stirred up. It keeps the conversation going, gives you an opportunity for your personality to get out there. But I think that it's really good to proclaim truth and to teach the truth, that there's one blood and one race.
Right. And so is it possible for us to have the same American dream as everyone else? Do you think that we have the same access to the American dream as everyone else? 2.5 kids, white picket fence, the home, the whole nine.
Well, I believe that equality is good, equal opportunity for everyone to pursue their dream. Equity means everybody thinks exactly the same thing and wants exactly the same thing. Somebody might want a house. Somebody might want a motorhome. Somebody might want a condominium. Somebody, there are different things that people want. So nothing is always exactly alike. But we should all have that equal opportunity to pursue our dreams. No one should ever be hungry, too hot or too cold, threadbare, and not have shoes and things like that. So those are things that everybody should have. But the American dream should give us all the freedom and the liberty to imagine where we want to go and what we want to be, and to be able to pursue that equally and freely.
I tend to agree with that. But it seems like the political left is constantly telling us, I happen to be an educator, and I find this to be the case, at least in the media, that they're constantly telling kids that they don't have that opportunity. I find it very frustrating. I'm like, why are you speaking victimhood into kids? Why aren't you telling them you can do anything you want? Why aren't you telling them you can aspire to be the best? Why are you not putting the many, many, many successful black people in front of them and telling them that you can go do that? Why are we not doing that?
Truth has to be taught in every generation and then in every decade, and now you need to teach it every day. So often when teachers are telling people that they're victims, the teachers themselves have been told that they were victims. And so we have to continue in every generation to proclaim and teach the truth that we're teaching. We have to elect people that are willing to pursue that, help others to pursue that same dream. And that has to happen in every generation and every decade.
So it really depends. What I hear you saying is it depends on how your parents messaged to you.
Not only our parents, our educators, our parents, our pastors. So we just have to promote truth in every generation. And when it's not done, if you take 2 decades, 20 years, 20, 30 years, and you don't teach truth, then you come back to where we are. And then somebody has to wake up and begin to tell the truth again. So I encourage people always to continue decade to decade to proclaim these truths. I have time for one more question, and then I'm going to have to hang up.
Okay. I really appreciate you staying on the phone with me all this time and giving me all this really good information. I'm going to use my last question to ask where we can follow you and where we can keep up with your next article.
AlvedaKing.com, and you can Google America First Policy Institute and find out more about me there. So AlvedaKing.com. I'm often on Fox Nation. I have a cooking show on there on Fox Nation. I'm a Fox News contributor, founder of an organization, Speak For, F-O-R, Speak For Life. So those are some places that you can certainly find them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alveda King, Chairman of the Center for American Dream at America First Policy Institute. I appreciate you being on the show this evening.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, have a great night.
You too. Bye.
That was Dr. Alveda King. We'll be right back.
Money Talk with Melanie features entrepreneurs, CEOs, and politicos who are experts in their fields. Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. That was Dr. Alveda King, Chairman for the Center for the American Dream at America First Policy Institute. She talked to us about Black history and the American Dream. I hope you guys enjoyed that. She is she's a special lady. If you watch Fox News at all or Fox Nation, you're familiar with her, and I'm very glad that I was able to get her on the show. She's like she gives you, if you meet her in person, she just gives you like a great auntie vibe. I'm just saying. So I was really excited to get her on the show. We're going to switch gears a little bit around 8:20, which we will bring Michelle Willette on the show, and she's going to talk to us about top 10. How did I phrase that? Top 10 strategies to start a successful business from home. I'm kind of excited about that because I will tell you that when you are at work with teenagers all day, you think about starting a business from home every day. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just saying there are days when it's challenging. Is all I'm suggesting to you. It can be challenging some days. And when you're trying to teach economics and financial literacy, and you're like, this is like stuff that's really important, guys. Just saying, it's important. Okay, entrepreneurs, are you stressed out? Are you a little bit stressed out over the COVID, over the volatile stock market because there's stuff going on overseas and places might be going to war? I have 11 effective ways to cope with entrepreneurial stress. There are negative health consequences when your stress goes unchecked. These things are well known, obviously, right? That when you have unchecked stress, these can have negative effects on your health. And sometimes your body just says, no, not doing it anymore. So we don't want to do that. We want to come up with some strategies. And this is particularly so for entrepreneurs. Quiet as it's kept. I think people who are not entrepreneurs, never ran any kind of business or anything like that, only see the fruits of the entrepreneurship and think that entrepreneurs have a super easy life. That is not true. Entrepreneurs work extremely hard and really are always working. I think the thing about entrepreneurs, particularly when they first start a business, they're always working. You're never off. That's a thing. So one of the first things you want to keep in mind is to keep your perfectionism in check. I would argue that is not, that entrepreneurs don't corner the market on perfectionism. There are certain people that also are perfectionists. I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. It is very hard not to be a perfectionist. It's weird. Like, why not get an A? Just get an A, because why not? You should just have A's. I don't understand people who don't want A's. It's bizarre to me. People who are just like, I'll take the C. What's wrong with you? It's just weird. Anyway, am I weird? Because I think that everyone should get A's all the time? Does that make me strange? I don't know. I don't understand C's. It's weird. Like, you want to be average. It's like, I don't know. Like, I have students say that to me. Well, I got a C. Or the infamous, I'm passing. Like, that whole mindset, I do not get at all. I'm passing. Like, you just want to pass? What? Anywho. Don't be. Is that how you want to run your business? Okay, wait. You're supposed to be not trying to be perfect. I'm sorry. That's supposed to be the advice. Scratch that. The advice is to not be perfect. You can get a B, and it's okay. Don't try to be perfect. I don't know. I think you should try to be exceptional at your business. But that's not the advice. I apologize. That's not the advice. Don't try to be exceptional. Don't try to be perfect. Be exceptional, not perfect. Move your body. It's a good idea to exercise. You should exercise. From the bed to the refrigerator. No, that's not what it says. Exercise is a good idea. It's good for anxiety. It's good for your soul. It's good for your heart. Go for a walk. It's a good idea. Delegate. This is actually really important, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're starting your business and you're working to do something else. A couple weeks ago on a show, we talked about the importance of delegating. I think I shared that I read this time management book, and it talked about how to decide what to delegate. And the advice that it gave is to take how much money you make per hour. And if that thing costs less than what you make per hour, then go ahead and pay somebody to do it, which I think is pretty reasonable. And I use that as my gauge all the time. Consequently, I don't do a lot of stuff that isn't fun. Because why would I? So, yeah, delegate. Learn to pace yourself is a good idea. You know, you want to get stuff done quickly and efficiently, but pace yourself, which is a good idea. And I try to do that. And I have a lot on my plate, like a lot. So I really do try to pace myself. As a matter of, so my typical pace was like when someone asked me for something, I used to always do stuff right away. Always. And I don't do that anymore. I do what's called putting it in the queue now. So that happened the other night. Somebody texted me that they wanted something, and I put it in a queue. And a couple hours later, they were like, "Are you going to get me that?" And I was like, "Oh, you needed that like now." And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, honey, I put it in the queue. You got to let me know if like that it was urgent." Because I sure enough wasn't going to do that until like 7:30 tomorrow morning. It was not happening. But because I was pacing myself, I was done exerting myself that day. So I had no intentions on doing any more work that day, but I needed to do some work. Hire help. We talked about that. Pace yourself. Put it on paper, or, since it's 2022, put it in your phone. The To-Do Cloud app, highly recommended. Feel free to send me a check, To-Do Cloud, just saying. It's $19 a year. I've been using it for like 10 years. It's great. To-Do Cloud, just saying. And connect with other people. I live in the middle of nowhere, so it's not that easy. Meetup is still around, where you can like meet with other people. Like when I lived in Philly, in the city, near people, that was like easier to do. But mostly I have to do that kind of stuff online now. Get a hobby. Hilarious. No. I mean, I guess you could if you had time to get a hobby. But you're supposed to do other stuff besides work. Find your Zen state. Don't know what that is. And this is true. This is the last one. Action beats anxiety. Marianne Williamson, if you remember that name, if you've ever read like an anti-anxiety book, she's very famous for them. And also she ran for president on the Democrat side in 2020, I think. But one of the things that one of her books said that impressed upon me, and she's so right about this, is that most anxiety comes from not taking action. And she's very right about that. So a lot of times when you're experiencing anxiety, it's because you have a decision to make and you haven't made it. So like pick something and do it. And a lot of times that will help with your anxiety. I use it all the time and it actually works. So entrepreneurs, feel free to use that. If you're not following me on any of my social media, do it, because these articles that I find that I think are really good, have really good information, you can find by following me on social media at Money Talk Mel on the Twitter, at Money Talk with Melanie on Facebook, Melanie T. Collette on the IG. Listen, if you speaking of IG, Instagram, if you message me on IG, I'm so not going to answer you ever, because I get so much spam on IG. I get people calling me on IG. This dude literally sent me a ball, and then sent me a message and said, "Oops, look, my ball rolled into your DMs. How are you today?" Cute, but bye. Like, stop. I will say that's the most original slide into my DMs that I had. But my DMs on IG are a mess. Like, I never just stop. But follow me there anyway, and you'll get links to all these articles and stuff in there. All like really good stuff. Now, in my travels on the interwebs, finding information, I found several articles, and I've seen it on social media, that have talked about the billions of dollars with a B for schools across the country that have received COVID money, right? To safely reopen schools is what we were told. And this was like over the summer. Like, schools over the summer were given COVID money. And the feds told us that the reason why the schools were given COVID money was so that schools could safely reopen, right? So then, like in September, schools like kind of reopened, some didn't. And then like after the schools reopened, after a couple of weeks, a lot of them went to virtual. There were a lot of issues, and a lot of the parents were blaming the teachers and were like, what did we give you guys all that money for? And it was a lot of conservative media saying that too. And I was like, wait a minute. First of all, and I'm in a lot of, like, on social media, a lot of teacher groups with literally thousands of teachers from across the country, not only across the country, but actually all over the world, with thousands of teachers in them. And one of the things that's being discussed is a lot of teachers have been saying, literally nothing changed. When we got back to school in September, like, I don't know what my school did with the money, but I'm not talking about me personally, but I'm saying that this is what other teachers have been saying, that, like, they got back to school and they didn't see anything really change. Like, they weren't social distancing. They were wearing masks, but there was no social distancing. And, they didn't see any real change. So, like, we couldn't tell them as teachers, like, where they're, like, for example, one article I ran into said in Texas, they got $2.4 billion to safely reopen schools. And the teachers were asking where it went because parents are asking them. And let me just clue some people in on some things. First of all, when the school boards spend money, nobody is asking a teacher a darn thing. Nobody's asking a teacher about anything. The only way to find out, this is a little inside baseball, the only way to find out anything about how your school board is spending money is to a couple of ways. Go to the school board meeting. Go to, it should be public information. Go to the school district website, and it should be posted on the agenda. It should be posted. You can also Oprah request that information. You can put in an Oprah request for it to figure out where the money went. But I can tell you what you can't do, how you're not going to find out, asking a teacher, because teachers don't know. Teachers do not participate in spending that money at all. Nobody asks a teacher. No, none of the powers that be are asking teachers about how to spend that money. I'm just saying. So, and the thing is, like, I was looking at, like, way back when they first gave all the schools the money. I'm looking at, okay, so what do we need to do for COVID? We need to social distance, right? And, well, at the time, it was vaccines and social distance. That was the thing. So I was like, okay, so I guess everybody's going to have different schedules. Are they going to build bigger school? Like, what are they going to do? To be honest, I was thinking, how is money going to really help? Because I knew what I was hearing was going to help with COVID, what was supposed to help. So I didn't really understand how money was going to help, but I was like, okay. Quite honestly, I think the teachers who are asking where the money went should be asking their unions. And I know a lot of teachers who got sick, who got COVID. So, and I know a lot of students who got COVID. Like I said, if you're on social media, it's easy to find that information out. And of course, you communicate with a lot of different people. So, I mean, it's wild. It was wild because for a couple weeks there, like, the news media, and particularly the conservative news media, were just letting teachers have it. Like, why are teachers not in school? I'm like, because they're sick. Like, because they have COVID. Like, because they're getting COVID left and right. Like, including myself. I was out for 10 days because I had COVID that I probably got at school. So, why are people asking us? We were in the classroom with COVID. So, yeah, why are you asking us where nobody sent us a purchase order and asked us what we wanted to spend money on? It's weird. It's weird that you're asking us. Why don't you ask someone who's in charge? It's not us. It's bizarre. Anyway, I saw this. What is this now? We're in February, but soon people are going to be getting married. Ladies, I saw a lot of, we just passed Valentine's Day. Saw a lot of people with rings on their fingers. Congratulations. Here are 3 terrible pieces of money advice everyone gives women planning a wedding. This is according to a financial advisor. Don't listen to these people. Weddings are joyful events. And can I tell you how much I hate weddings? I really do. Like, if I ever get married again, you'll find out about it on social media and we'll have a party afterward. Like, I loathe weddings. Just awful. Weddings, funerals, graduations. Hate them all. I didn't walk for either of my graduations. Undergrad, grad school, nothing. And people were like big mad at me. I hate all that stuff. But anyway, here's some horrible advice that people give you. Spending X amount of money is normal. Listen, no such thing as normal. Forget that. Don't listen to your friends that say spending a ridiculous amount of money is normal. Amen. Put that money away. Put that money on a house or pay off some debt. Okay? Don't listen to your crazy friends. That's bad advice. Bad advice number 2. Just put it on credit. Worry about paying it later. No, do not do that. Horrible advice. Do not go into debt for one day. It's stupid. Just saying. Dumb, 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 dumb. I don't understand people who are like really into their weddings. I mean, not for nothing. I've had 2. Let's just say I'm really glad I didn't spend a lot of money on either one of them. At least I didn't do any financial damage. 3, terrible advice. You have to invite everyone. You don't want to leave anybody out. Yeah, you do. You do. You do not have to invite everyone. People's feelings will get hurt. They'll get over it. 3 pieces of horrible advice when planning a wedding. People will get over it. They will. So those really are, that really is horrible money advice. It is a shame that there's so much drama around weddings. Now that I'm old, I really don't care. And let me tell you something. If you're young and you're planning your wedding, trust me, when you get older, it will not matter. Just take it from me. It's not going. I know it seems like it matters, but it doesn't. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette. Thinking about starting a business from home? Well, Michelle Willette is going to help you with that. We'll be right back.
Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie. Thursdays, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your host, Melanie Collette. And this hour, we have Michelle Willette, co-founder of Balance Your Path. She's going to talk to us about the top 10 strategies to start a successful business from home. 25 years ago, Michelle was coming to the end of a decade of homelessness on the streets of Los Angeles. She began a journey of healing, learning, and receiving teaching that has launched her into a balanced life of peace and abundance beyond her wildest dreams. She now teaches others how to transform her thoughts to create the foundation of the natural state of well-being. She has helped thousands of everyday people to do this with her thought transformation techniques that have proven to help propel anyone, anywhere, to achieve an abundant life balance. And without further ado, Michelle Willette.
Thank you so much for having me, Melanie. It's great to be here.
Good evening. Thank you for being on.
It's great. I'm so looking forward to this.
So am I. Is there anything that I didn't mention in your bio that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think you covered it pretty well, Melanie. You know, the trauma that I started off in life with was my motivation to create what I've got today. And I'm anxious to share that with your listeners.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. So with the Great Resignation going on, I think partially due to the pandemic, partially due to people just realizing that they were tired of their jobs. I heard something interesting, actually, this afternoon on the news. I happen to be an educator by trade. That's my day job. And they said that the nation is short 400 teachers post-pandemic. They were already short teachers, and now they're short 400,000, teachers have just left the profession. And I thought, wow. And they just went to do other things. And I think that's happening in a lot of professions. And I just thought, wow, perfect that we're talking about starting and growing a business from home, because I'm sure that there are a lot of teachers that are doing that. As a matter of fact, I saw there's a whole area of TikTok that are just former teachers, just doing other stuff.
Yeah, I've seen it. And, you know, you're right. Those numbers are just overwhelming, how many people that are walking away from their jobs. And I think the pandemic did have a big piece, you know, to the reason behind it. I think people got stuck at home, and then they started to realize, wow, I kind of like this. I like the freedom. I like the flexibility that I have in my life, even though the world around me may be in chaos. There's something about this that makes me feel more comfortable, and I'm going to start questioning whether or not I'm bringing value to my company.
Mm-hmm. That is very true. And
yeah.
I think you also start to realize that, like, life is short when people, I mean, the nature, I think the nature of this particular virus is so unpredictable, has been so unpredictable over the last 2 years.
Yes.
With the different variants and whatnot.
Right, and it's driven so much fear in most of us, right? The world in its entirety at this point is just living in this place of fear and hopelessness, and that has really mirrored kind of what we had felt on the job for years and didn't even notice it. And they're questioning now, where should I be? Where do I need to feel good for the time that I've got left on this planet, however long that might be?
Indeed. So the first thing, what's the first step, would you say, in trying to start a business from home? There are a lot of, I find on LinkedIn, for example, which is supposed to be kind of the social media place for business, but I'm finding that there are a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of, but there are kind of fake businesses that have migrated there now. Like, LinkedIn used to be a super serious place.
Right.
And now, like, some non-serious actors have kind of migrated there.
It's true. I've seen some of that myself. I'll tell you, Melanie, the very first thing that anybody should be considering if thinking about starting a business for themselves is passion. Is there something in your life that you have true passion for? We've all heard the saying, you know, if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. And that is very accurate. And if you're going to go through the process and the work to put a business together, make sure it's something that you love.
That makes sense. That makes a ton of sense. Why would you want to? Why would you want to be stuck doing something? You could just go get a job if you're going to do that.
Exactly.
You might as well just go get a job. If it's going to be something that you're not going to like.
Exactly. So the passion needs to be the very first thing.
Certainly. And I tell my students the same thing. I impress upon them that how many hours of the day you're going to be doing that thing. So you better like it.
You better like it.
Like you better like it a lot.
So true.
Okay. Okay. Now, one of the things that you talk about is finding out if there's a market for your product or service. Now, what do you mean by that?
Well, if you have got an idea, something you're passionate about, and you want to turn it into a viable business, chances are there's going to be a product or a service that you want to offer that you really have passion for. Is there a market for it? Is there similar or the same item out there? Are there people already selling it? Is there a market for it? Are people buying it? If it does exist, are people buying it? And obviously that's really kind of, is this worth my time? Do I need to start the business for this particular product or this particular service? You got to do some research. You need to find out what's going on out into the world. And, of course, social media is the best possible place to do this. I am a fan of Instagram for this very piece.
And you got to find out if there's gaps in the market that you can fill.
Exactly. You want your niche, right? Or niche, however, potato. It's you have to find that one thing that even if you're thinking of a very common product or a common service that other people are doing, what can you do that serves something that's missing in the market? People are seeking for something. They have a pain point that you can solve.
Right.
What can you do to turn your item or service on its ear just a little bit to fill that gap? You bet.
Now, I think the other question is it good for the long term, too? Like, is it a fad? Or does it have longevity? You know what I mean? That product or service doesn't have longevity.
Absolutely, and that should be part of that initial market research. Is it something that people are going to need today and not tomorrow, or is it something that people are going to need today and they need to replace it over and over again so they have it in their home or in their life for the next 20 years?
Right.
You need to identify that for sure.
Now, the good thing about this kind of stuff now is, like, back in the day, there was no, you used to have to hire somebody to do, like, market research for something like that. But now we have the interwebs. And,
we sure do.
Like, you can look up a template to do market research on something.
Yes.
Like, if you're smart enough, you could figure out how to do your own market research. Heck, you could hire a freelancer if you have a little bit of, money aside to invest in your own company. You could hire a freelancer to do market research for you.
Absolutely. And again, that's why I love Instagram. For me, I don't have any marketing experience. I can do a lot of things. Marketing ain't one of them. And I found that if I were to go looking on Instagram and literally putting in the type of product or service that I would be offering and finding other companies that are offering the same or similar products, literally just following them and going in, you can see their customers commenting, who's buying, who's waiting for it to come back in stock, how many sales have they made, where in the country, and then you have even a deeper look into who's actually buying it. There's your ideal customer, right? Well, who are they? How old are they? Where do they live? What's their educational level? You get all of these details on one platform with a few clicks.
That is very true. I didn't even think about that with Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do better with. I need to do better with Instagram, but I hate it there.
Oh, I'm not a fan of social media at all, but I have an e-commerce company, Melanie. I have to live in social, and I am on every single platform.
See,
I have learned to use them.
Old. I still like the book. Like, I love the book. I still like the book because I'm old.
I'm with you. I'm a Gen Xer. I get it. Girl, I get it.
Right. And like Snapchat, I'm just like, no. Like when Snapchat first came out, I went on Snapchat and I was like, okay, you make a message and it disappears. No.
Right.
Absolutely not. I'm not doing that. No.
Stand firm in those beliefs, Melanie. Do it.
And my students are like, Ms. Willette, are you on Snap? I'm like, I write a message and it disappears? Absolutely not. No. No.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you.
Okay, we're up against the commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some more tips for setting up a successful business from home. We're talking to Michelle Willette, co-founder of Balance Your Paths. We'll be right back on the other side of the break.
Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. We are speaking with Michelle Willette. She's a co-founder at Balance Your Path, and we're talking to her about the top 10 strategies to start a successful business from home. So we were talking about the importance of finding a market for your product and service. We were actually also talking about the importance of social media, and talking about how old I am and I don't use Snap. I actually do use Snapchat for one purpose. When I want to communicate with my nephews who are young and like wish them a happy birthday or something so they think I'm cool. And then I will go on Snapchat and like snap them happy birthday.
That is the perfect reason to use it right there. I think that's what it really was intended for, and that's the only thing we should do with it.
Yes. Otherwise, I'm like, no. Absolutely. Absolutely no. Like, I can't get into it. I can't do it. I feel like I should because I'm a computer teacher. Like, literally teach computer apps. I teach economics and financial literacy, but I also teach computers and computer programming and stuff. But I can't, my brain won't, I just can't accept Snapchat. I can't do it.
Well, stay clear of it then, girl, because it will suck you in, and it just leaves you feeling lost at the end of it. You're like, I have nothing to show for my effort.
The kids are super into it, though. Like, that's all they do.
Yeah. My daughter will, instead of texting me, will send me a snap and talk to me that way. And I'm like, really? I don't understand, and I'll text her back. We'll have this conversation going, I'll get a snap, I'll text. Snaps, I text.
Is there any business value to Snapchat? Like, can you advertise on that?
You can to some extent. And my business is on Snapchat, but we don't post much for, like, the filtered videos. I put basic videos similar to the same kinds of things that I would do on TikTok. And TikTok is definitely one of our largest. We use that quite a bit.
I only troll TikTok. I only watch videos. I don't do anything on there. I feel
we post daily. It's a daily thing for us.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like I should be, though.
And I will be completely transparent, Melanie. There is actually one video of me dancing. It happened. I had to try it out. It was right at the beginning of TikTok, way back when. And but I haven't done it since. I just don't get into what everybody else is doing. I get on there and I share my information and I move on, but I can't get into that either.
I don't know. But it's part of the thing. It's part of business success, I feel like.
It absolutely is.
I'll put it on my list for the summer.
There you go. Social media is so important, and COVID, of course, helped with that as well. It was always important since its birth, right? But now, when we relied on technology so heavily through this last couple of years, it has been the absolute place to go. If you're going to be doing business, your business has to be on social.
I think that this ties in with the next tip, though, which is to identify your audience, right?
Yes. And social is the best way to do it. Like I said, on Instagram, if you're going in and finding the companies that are selling similar or the same product and looking at who's buying them just by the posts on their accounts, you can do the same thing across all of them. Facebook will give you the same information. TikTok will give you the same information. You can actually go in and see who's following these people and have a very clear idea by clicking on the individual's bio who they are. Who is that ideal customer? If they want that product, are they going to be interested in yours? Absolutely.
True. And see, I have the most followers on IG. I get the most followers the quickest on IG, and that's literally the app I spend the least amount of time on.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yes, which is weird.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, my Twitter is just like dragging along. My Twitter account is just absolutely brutal, like just scraping to get Twitter followers.
Twitter has been my nightmare. I don't quite know how to use it, and so I attempt it on a regular basis because the company is there, and it's unproductive for me.
Right. Same. So I wonder, and I haven't done any research on my social media stuff recently, and maybe I need to revisit it. I don't know. But I think my guess is that if I were to revisit it, when it comes to making sure you identify your audience, it probably, I wonder if different social media platforms appeal to different audiences, and that perhaps this has to do with focusing. Like if my show only really appeals to, I don't know, white men from 35 to 70 on LinkedIn, then yeah, I should never think about Snapchat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I should literally only be on LinkedIn.
No, you're absolutely correct in that. And a simple Google search will give you that data. They will tell you, and it's free to find, who is watching what platform and where to go. Once you identify who your ideal customer is, you can easily figure out where to market to them. And you're right, all the platforms have different demographics associated to them. It just is what it is. And so one of the reasons why I totally recommend anyone starting a business to be on all of them. Even if you know what your demographic is, you never know where the cross-pollination might come from and how these platforms are consistently evolving. We want to be a part of that. As they evolve, it might pick up our demographic out of nowhere, and then boom, we're on top of the heap. It's just a good idea to have a presence.
And I think, part of the issue with your audience and how it, works out with the social media platforms is how they finagle their algorithms. So,
right.
So some of it has nothing to do with you.
That is so correct. And that, unfortunately, is information you will never find.
Right. Absolutely not.
It's a mystery, and we all have to just accept it for what it is and try to figure it out on a daily basis. And unfortunately, they change it on a daily basis. So,
right.
That's the challenging part to social, you bet.
That's true. Now, another thing that you need to figure out is your operation costs. How do you go about doing that?
Well, it really depends on what you're offering. Services, obviously, aren't going to have a lot of operational costs associated to them. If you have a product and if you are hand making something and selling it yourself, then you will know exactly what you're paying for supplies and the time it takes you to make one. But you should sit down and actually time that. If you are hand making something, for instance, make 10 of them, one back to back, and time how long it takes you and take into consideration a fair wage for you to create it and the supplies. There you have a basic cost, at least a platform of what that item's going to cost. If you're going to have someone manufacture it for you, get quotes. Reach out to several different companies that will make it for you and think about quality when you're looking at the prices they're offering you. One thing that's really big in operational costs that I think a lot of new business owners don't consider is that at the very beginning, your costs are going to be higher and your revenue lower than it will be, a year or two from now. You must be patient because buying 10 items versus 10,000 items, of course, your cost is going to go down.
Yes.
But you need to bake that in from the very beginning so that you have an idea of some kind of a profit margin going forward. Is it going to be a profitable company?
Yes, that is very, very true. And, there's a couple of things, a couple of other things that you don't think about, like if you're going to advertise on social media.
Correct.
if you're going to, I don't know, put flyers out in different stores and you're going to drive around, if you're going to attend a conference where you're putting your stuff on display.
Yes.
There's all different kinds of like miscellaneous kinds of costs.
Exactly.
For if you're going to podcast, if you're going to, there's all kinds of costs that you don't think of.
Exactly, absolutely. And that's, in the process as someone's going through figuring out the cost of making their product specifically, and then looking at everything from a price tag. Are you putting a handmade tag on it? Are you packaging? What does that look like? Shipping, what does that look like? There are so many different little costs that you need to consider. And again, there's so much great information, and I actually have a list of resources that your listeners can find on my website of all these places that they can go to find out those lists, and so they can check them off and determine these things right down to the penny.
That's very good. Now, what's the next one? I feel like the next one's kind of controversial.
The creating a business plan, is that where we're at on this?
Yes, and I think that's controversial. I've had different people, different guests debate me on this one.
Well, I'll tell you what, the only reason, in my opinion, that a business plan is necessary, well, there's two reasons for me. One, if at some point you are going to go and look at obtaining substantial funding, from, like an SBA loan, they're going to require that you have one.
Yep.
For your personal use, outside of funding, the only real reason behind a business plan is to allow you to easily set up your long-term goals. And you need your long-term goals so that you can work backwards and create your day-to-day goals in order to get your company to where it needs to go. And it's a simple way to do that. Using a template for a business plan is a great way to see, this is where I want the company in 5 years. Now let's work all the way backwards and build out a project plan to get there.
Yes, and Microsoft Word has one. It's not hard to get.
Nope.
It's pretty easy. They have, Microsoft Word has a really comprehensive one.
They do. It's fantastic.
Yep, I have a couple of businesses sitting on my shelf thanks to Microsoft Word. Okay, we only have a couple minutes left, so I think I want to go to set up a home office because I feel like this one is actually feels like it's probably super easy, but it's not.
It's not. It's not. And the biggest thing that you need to take into consideration when starting a business from home is that you still need to have that relaxation at the end of your workday, and that's very hard to achieve when your workspace and your relaxed space is the same space. So I highly urge anyone who is starting a business from home to create a very specific space within their home for business. If they have a corner of a room or a spare bedroom where they can put a little desk and use it only for business, where they can put hours of business, only work those hours, be very diligent, set your boundaries. I'm sitting at this desk until 4 p.m., and at 4 p.m. I'm getting up and I'm not going to sit at that location again until tomorrow morning. Be setting those standards from the very, very start. And if you don't have a specific space and you have to use your kitchen table or your coffee table in your living room or whatever that is, again, set those hours of operation where that is used for business. And when business is done, it goes back to the other use, whatever it might be, and it remains in that space until you go back to work the next day. And it helps to set that standard with your family. Kids come home after school, for instance, need to do homework at the kitchen table. Find them a different location to be doing homework in the afternoon. But dinner, it's going to be on that table because my business is going to close at 4 and be out of the way.
That is
Setting those things are so important.
That is exactly how you should do it. Don't be like me and bring your computer to bed. Now, I have a home office. Don't get me wrong. I have a home office with a studio, but sometimes I feel like a weighted blanket with my 9-pound puppy and my laptop is so much better. So I can just work all day. The problem is you'll just work all day.
You'll just work all day.
You'll just work all day and into the night, and you're like, why did I just sit here and work for 14 hours? What did I just do to myself? What just happened here?
I'll tell you what, and you've been doing what you do for a very long time, as have I. So you, of course, get relaxed in your work as time goes on. For a brand new business owner, the reason that this is so important to schedule your time and not take your computer to bed with you is because you will burn out before your business becomes successful.
Yep.
If you're driven at the beginning and you set those boundaries and you know you're already going to be working very hard to get this off the ground, and so the first year I'm setting this as a standard. After that, when my company starts to become profitable, I'm feeling more comfortable with all things and how it operates, then I can ease that computer into other spaces. Absolutely.
Right, exactly. But it always starts off with, I'm just going to do this real quick. And then the next thing you know, I'm just going to do
So
this.
true.
I'm just going to do this one thing real fast. That's why I'm not going to go sit at my desk, because I'm just going to do this one thing real fast.
Yep. And 6 hours later.
Right, exactly.
9 and...
Exactly. So tell people where they can find your website, follow you on social media, etc.
Easiest place to find all things is the website. It's balanceyourpath.com. There are links there to all of my social media. There are links to my books. There is a full extended training free of charge of this topic on the website, so they can go over and grab that, along with lots of other trainings that are free and downloadable. There are links to everything and every way to find me and contact me on the website, balanceyourpath.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight, Michelle Willette. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me, Melanie. It was wonderful.
Thanks so much. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. We'll be right back.
Money Talk with Melanie. Money Talk with Melanie on 98.7 The Coast.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I hope you enjoyed tonight's special edition of Money Talk with Melanie. In case you missed it, earlier this evening we had Bob Fu, Senior Fellow for International Religious Freedom at the Family Research Council. He talked to us about how money motivates the U.S.-China relationship. Then we also had Dr. Alveda King, Chairman of the Center for the American Dream at America First Policy Institute. She talked to us about Black history and the American dream. And then finally, we had Michelle Willette, co-founder at Balance Your Path. She talked to us about the top 10 strategies to start a successful business from home. If you missed any of that, you should go back and listen to the rest. Listen to the show as a podcast. Go back and listen to the show as a podcast when we post it tomorrow. For Money Talk with Melanie next week, make sure you catch it. We will have Todd Randall. He is the CEO at Beachview Coaching. He's going to talk to us about starting, growing, and managing a fully remote business. And then we will have the one and only Eva Rosenberg, the tax mama. She is dean at irsexams.school and founder of taxmama.com. She's going to talk to us about your business Bible, small business taxes made easy. Remember, this is important because after all, it's your money.